Welcome into Steelers Latest, your daily spot for all news and information related to your Pittsburgh Steelers. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content to stay up to date with everything Steelers. Let's get rolling. Training camp starts today, so we got a training camp all episode long. We're rocking with this training camp theme. Uh, First off, the big stories entering today's training camp, the start of training camp, of course. The Steelers pick up today where they left off last season with some new additions. That is going to be the biggest storyline, as most of these additions, veteran presences in key position groups, especially quarterback and cornerback. Aaron Rodgers, 41. Is he going to be able to hold up? Darius Slay, 34. Is he going to be able to hold up this year? Are they both going to decline even more? Darius Slay, really good last year, honestly, for the Eagles. But is this the year where he approaches that cliff and maybe even goes over it? You never know. It's a little worrisome in a position group where athleticism is key and cornerback. The older you get, the more likely you're gonna just fall off the face of the earth, talent wise. And hopefully that doesn't happen to Slay this year. But I do worry some. Jalen Ramsey, really not too worried about him. He is over the age of 30 now, though, so you never know. But I really ain't worried too much. But that is the first major storyline. Can the veterans really have enough gas left in the tank to get through a whole 17 game season and maybe even some playoff games for us Steelers fans and win us a couple for the first time in years? Second major storyline is, of course, all the key position questions. You got possibly a battle in the backfield between Jalen Warren and Caleb Johnson. Really think Caleb Johnson can earn himself a spot in possibly a starting role for the Steelers this year. Maybe not before the season, but definitely in a maybe by week 4 of the season he could possibly contend for that starting position. I'm really interested. I think he's very physically gifted. We'll talk about him a little bit more later. The other two key positions, the questions around wide receiver and free safety. Will the replacements of George Pickens be in Calvin Austin and the replacement of Minkah Fitzpatrick being Juan Thornhill? Are those two going to be able to get the same amount of production as those two that left us did? Probably not at wide receiver too. I don't think Calvin Austin is gonna be able to have a George Pickens level season at George Pickens prime, but Calvin Austin, a lot of hype around him this year. Once again, Peter Schrager said he has a lot of hope for Calvin Austin's 2025 season, and this could be his breakout. But I have a lot of questions around that. Juan Thornhill, also, the team seems very intrigued by him, very confident in him right now. So hopefully, what the coaches are seeing is right, and Juan Thornhill can really fill that Minkah Fitzpatrick hole with ease. I mean, Minkah wasn't getting the explosive plays, the turnovers, the interceptions as he was before. So if Juan can just get one or two, that's already better production than Minkah had last year in the turnover game, and that's the main reason the Steelers moved on from him. And the final key story is, of course, how Mike Tomlin is going to handle all the personalities once again in this locker room. Is he going to let them be themselves? Probably. That's the Mike Tomlin way, and then he'll be there, put out the fires once again. And that's the Steeler way at this point in his career. But it's always fun to see how Tomlin manages all the personalities in the locker room and also how he's able to make them achieve the best out of their capabilities and drag, hopefully, this mediocre team that seems pretty mediocre, but maybe he can elevate it a little bit and hopefully break that curse of our playoff drought. Let's move on to some of the players with the most to gain in this training camp. First one, number one, Roman Wilson. I think with a lot of questions at receiver, he has a lot to prove this year after missing most of last season due to injury, only 5 total snaps during the year. So really don't know much about him, but if he can prove himself early into training camp, maybe ball out in a couple preseason games, I don't think Calvin Austin is a firm slot at wide receiver too. I think there's a lot of leeway there, a lot of wiggle room, and if Roman Wilson can prove he can be a guy out wide, I think Mike Tomlin won't be scared to pull the trigger on that and move Calvin Austin back to the slot because Calvin proved he can really get the job done from the slot position last year. So Roman Wilson can definitely work his way up the depth chart if he has a stellar training camp and preseason. Number two, of course, Juan Thornhill. Basically can fend off the rumors of Justin Simmons possibly getting signed by the Steelers with the free safety depth being a little lackluster. Juan Thornhill can just prove that he is the starter and deserves to be the starter heading into the season. And number three, of course, Caleb Johnson, the physical beast we drafted in the third round in the backfield. I think, once again, this guy can be a stud running back in this league for 5 to 8 years. I think he has the build to be that power back. Looks a lot like Derrick Henry, can be compared physically a lot to Derrick Henry. So I would love to see him work his way up, and he has the ability to earn more reps every day and hopefully become a starter as soon as possible because I want the ball in his hands as fast as possible. Let's move on to the most underrated players, though, coming in to the 2025 season for the Steelers. Who's underrated on their roster? First off, edge rusher Nick Herbig. I'm a glaze Nick Herbig a little bit because I don't know. I just see it. I see him being the next guy after Alex Highsmith rushing on that right or left edge. I think he looked really good last year, filling in for Highsmith when Highsmith was injured. The Cincinnati Bank game really stands out to me the most when you think about Nick Herbig last year. He gave us great reps last year when we needed him to. I think once again he's gonna get great reps when he's on the field, and I think his total the usage is gonna go up a lot this year. I think we're gonna run more of a rotation with him and Alex Highsmith this year. That's just speculation, but I really do think it would be beneficial to do that. Keep your edge rushers a little more fresh. Even rotate Watt out with Herbig. I think Herbig can really be a X factor in the pass rush game at a certain point in his career. We just need to continue to see that development. And I mean, his progress so far in his career has only been vertical. So that's always nice to see. Second most underrated player, and the team underrates him. Darnell Washington. I don't know why we underuse this guy so much. I know he's great in run blocking, but he can also be great in being a red zone target. I mean, he's a massive body, built like Antonio Gates, basically. Got that height like Antonio Gates. You just toss it up to him in the red zone. He goes up and catches the ball. He's taller than everyone else. I don't get why we never use him in red zone packages, it feels like. We never run him on routes in the red zone. Just give him a chance. I think he'll surprise many people. I think he can really be a weapon in this red zone this year for a player like Aaron Rodgers. An experienced quarterback like Aaron Rodgers sees that height and hopefully knows to target it. So hopefully he balls out this year. Hopefully gets a couple touchdowns. Would like to see him approach that 5 touchdown mark for the first time in his career. That's a big ask, considering I think he only has one in his 2 year career so far. But I'd like to see him get more targets in the red zone. And number three, I think this dude's just more slept on around fans of the league. Deshaun Elliott, I think the players know Deshaun Elliott is a baller. The fans kind of sleep on him still. Doesn't get a lot of TV time too much. The Steelers fans know that Deshaun Elliott was a stud last year for us, and he's going to continue to be a stud. Once again, he was one of the best box safeties in the league last year, and that's going to continue. Once again, he's just a dog back there, and I think a lot of fans around the league really sleeping on this guy, and he's going to be a key piece to why this secondary gets better this year. Let's wrap up this show though with a couple players on the bubble. Who could we be saying goodbye to before the season even starts? Uh, because not everyone's going to make it to week one. I think there's 90 people that start on the roster. We're going to work that down to 55. And who needs to really prove they belong here? First, Cordero Patterson, a very stacked running back room now, just full of bodies, full of names. Uh, Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, and Cordero Patterson. I just think isn't going to fit in to any plans this year. I think it's going to be gone. Gainwell, he's going to be the special teams guy. He basically is a younger Cordero Patterson. Never really as explosive as Cordero Patterson was in his prime, but Cordero isn't in his prime anymore. So Kenneth Gainwell, basically the younger version, and he's going to fill that role Patterson had last year. And Patterson really didn't fill that role very well last year. So hopefully Gainwell is an upgrade. But I'm sorry to say, he's probably gone. Brandon Eccles now has to really fight for a spot after the trade for Jalen Ramsey. You got Slay and Ramsey in front of him now. You got a lot of youth as depth in the cornerback room, so he could find himself as the odd man out just so the Steelers can avoid paying him his contract this year. Saves them a couple $1 million if they got rid of him. So I just feel like he could find himself as an odd man out. I wouldn't personally cut him just because I think the depth at cornerback is very necessary, and he could be a reliable piece if someone like Darius Slay regresses a lot this year. And finally, the Marvin Leal, another case of the defensive line room is absolutely loaded with young talent and key veteran pieces. So I think once again, DeMarvin Leal is going to be the odd man out when it comes to the defensive line room because you're going to need space, and I'm just pretty confident he's the one that's going to be cut and released by the start of the season. But that has been it from Steelers Latest. I've been your host, Cole Dennis, and I will see you tomorrow.